Today I'm sitting down with Dan Titus from Yahoo and Roto World, and we are going to be talking about some player ranks, some ADPs, and the launch overnight of the Yahoo mock drafts, the mock lobby, and their X ranks. Let's go balls deep.
I could bet all of the riches that I ever had.
Welcome to the Balls Deep Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. I'm Adam King. Find me on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it, at AdamKing91. Find my guest, Dan Titus, at Dan Titus on Twitter. Dan, thanks for making the time to jump on. This all happened pretty quick, so I appreciate the effort.
No doubt, my man. Thank you for having me. And it's Friday, so I'm happy to talk hoops any day of the week. And football season's about to start, so I think people are going to get distracted from fantasy hoops. But as you said at the top, the Yahoo game just opened up. So, hey, man, it's never too early to start drafting. So I'm sure we'll get in some fun mocks over the course of the next couple of months here as we start gearing up for the start of the season.
We will. And so you actually made it down to Vegas for Summer League. You met up with Josh Lloyd there. So, and I'm assuming some other pretty cool people. How was your experience down there? Had you been there before?
So I've been before as a spectator, didn't have any credentials or anything like that. So this experience was like completely different. And I talked to Josh. I saw him pretty early. Like as I was walking out, I was like, hey, that's a pretty tall Australian looking guy. I think that's him. Kind of hard to miss because I was surprised how tall he was. But he was so cool, man. And he kind of took me under his wing because I know he'd been there like 5 times over. And, he knew a lot of the beat writers and just kind of how to navigate Thomas and Mack Center. So it was really cool just walking around and seeing the engagement with not only the players, but the media side, and then seeing the fan reaction. And let me tell you, man, like Josh is international. Like it's crazy how there's this couple of guys I heard screaming for him, like Lloyd. I'm like, dude, you got like fanboys now? That's tight. You've made it. So yeah, the whole weekend was awesome, and got to talk to a couple of players. I'd say most notable was Trey Murphy. He shared with me that he's really trying to work on his ability to get to the rim and get more free throw opportunities, which I think from a fantasy perspective is exactly what you want to hear. Coming off of a season finishing in the top 50 in per game value. So yeah, just a lot of interesting conversations and just really immersed in the experience of just getting to see the Wemby and Scoot Henderson hype. Like that was really cool. So definitely recommend going, and hopefully I'll see you there in a matter of time. Hopefully you guys can both make a trip out there so we can catch up in real life.
Yeah, look, it's I think our plan is to get there in 2020. What are we now? 23, probably 2025 potentially.
Okay.
So 2 years, which I think is going to be the flag draft now, isn't it? Because he's just
reclassified, right?
Yeah. So that'll be pretty cool. I've been once a few years ago. I was there for the Zion Summer League, so that was
the earthquake.
That was pretty cool. The earthquake, yeah. So we were there for that. The Wemby one would have been. I mean, watching it on TV for that first Wemby game, basically the camera was just on him the whole time,
right.
showing how tall he was in the walkway where they come in.
It's insane. I have a picture of him just like hanging there, like just bored, like just with his arms rested on it. I'm like, dude, this guy is. And I saw Taco fall too, and like that's a huge man. But like looking at Wemby, I'm like, dude, where did this alien come from?
yeah, it's going to be he's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
So as I said at the top there, Yahoo launched their mock draft lobby overnight with their X ranks. The ranks have sort of copped a little bit of criticism over the last few years. They're pretty wacky. There's players that fall way down, players out of position. This year actually looks pretty decent, so it's good. It's going to give a better reflection of ADPs and where people are going. Now I have pulled up all of them, and for me, I mean, going through the top sort of, I don't know, top 90. I think it's pretty much bang on. I mean, you can shuffle some guys around. You can make a case for this guy over this guy. Few guys down towards the bottom that you sort of mentioned, maybe they just got skipped, or the rookies are all way down. I know Scoot is down at about 600, and there's sort of a bunch of rookies down there. So I guess that's just the way the data has come across. But I thought like this, a little bit of a plug here. You can talk about the Yahoo mock drafts and the player ranks. So any thoughts on those? I mean, as I said, they're much better.
Yeah, I think this year we got an earlier start in terms of, at least on my end, contributing my rankings early enough. I didn't start with Yahoo last year until like late September. So, my first version of mocks that are my first version of ranks that are integrated within the X ranks didn't really come until late in the game. So I think much of that value was probably gone by the time I got into the fold. But I think that now that we started very early this year, we have a collection of other rankings that are kind of integrated that make up that X rank. And, because it's so early, training camps haven't started yet. Depth charts are still being figured out. There's still a handful of free agents out there. Some of those rankings still may be a little bit wonky, but I think you'll start to see it get a little bit sharper as we start to head into training camp, and certainly as the season's approaching. So I think I saw a couple of players. You mentioned Scoot Henderson's down the 600s. I would expect a lot of the rookies out, except for Victor Wembanyama, to be probably on the lower end of the rankings. And then you'll have some values like Jalen Duren, who's up in somewhere in the 200s, where he would be much higher, especially based off of the way he's been playing or way he played at the USA Select team.
Yeah, so there's a few in here. One of them is actually one of the guys that I'm pretty high on. And God, if he was available at this spot, I'll talk about it when he comes up in my list. But yeah, I've got actually I better check on my list who I've got, because so another one is Zach Collins is down at 197.
Yeah, that's disrespectful, because he's going to be getting a lot of minutes in that front court there.
He will. Who else have we got down there? I mean, you'd look at it and go, oh no, too low for RJ Barrett. It's probably not. He's 236. That's about right.
So he's a guy that I think he's been playing well for Team Canada, and he's improved, like not from a fantasy perspective, but I feel like at some point he's got to figure it out, at least to be a top 100 player. So he's a player that usually I rank outside the top 200, but I think I'm going to put him in at least the 150 range this year.
Okay.
I think we're going to see him get a little bit better this year, at least from an efficiency and contributing in other categories, which he usually doesn't do.
Yeah, and that's what he needs to do. He just needs to do more. Obi Toppin down at 241. He'll go higher than that.
Yeah. I think I saw last night, I think Jarris Walker was actually ahead of Obi Toppin, which I was like, I don't know if the rookie's going to just jump the Obi Toppins of the world. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Obi probably goes up into the mid 100s, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a couple there. We'll get into what we actually came here to talk about, and then I can jump back in and reference those if I need to. So let me bring up the shared screen there. So you sent me a few names. So both of yourself and myself, we've both released our own player ranks. I mean, they're somewhat similar. The first guy that you're going to talk about, we have exactly the same in exactly the same spot. So you just sent me through four guys that you're pretty high on this season. First one you've got there is you have him ranked at number 4 is Jason Tatum. I also have him ranked at number 4. What are your reasonings there? Because he's obviously never finished this high per game in his career. We've got guys like Shea, Halliburton sort of getting hyped up into that top 5 range. What are your reasons for having Tatum there at number 4?
Yeah, I think he's going to be having Derek White as the starting point guard. I think is going to be great for his efficiency as well as his opportunities to be more of a playmaker. Now that Marcus Smart is no longer there, one of the ways that I think Tatum's going to increase his value is getting more assists, and he's going to have the ball in his hands more, mainly because Derek White is such a dynamic off-ball combo guard. He was one of the most efficient shooters on the wing for the Boston Celtics last year. The second most assists that Jason Tatum generated went to Derek White last year. And then on the flip side, Derek White had most of his assists go to Jason Tatum. So they obviously have a very strong rapport that I think is going to make Jason Tatum get even better this season. He's improved in his points, rebounds, and assists every single year since he's been in the league. He shot a career best from field goal percentage. So I just think that there's a lot of room for him to kind of raise that ceiling a little bit now that he's going to have more opportunities to thrive with the ball in his hands as a playmaker. Maybe he doesn't score 30 points per game, but I think we're going to see those rebounds go up. He could get to close to that 9 range, especially with rumors of Porzingis maybe being hurt already. And we know he was able to stay healthy last year, but can he make it for a full season? Robert Williams, same thing. Al Horford's old. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and it's going to be a contract year for him. He's going to get that super max. So I think there's a lot of things going in Tatum's favor that I would put him over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's going to have more competition with Chet Holmgren coming back and Jalen Williams taking a kind of a leap in his second season. And then the only other person that I think you could probably put into contention with that would be Tyrese Halliburton's certainly there. I just like Jason Tatum a little bit more.
Yeah, I've got him. I mean, I agree with all of that. Another reason is just the situation they're in. Like, I think with the money they've paid to Jalen Brown, Kristaps is there. Like, I think their window is now. If they want to win, they want to win now. Tatum is durable. He usually, I mean, obviously you can't project injuries, but he's usually durable. They're going to want to win. They're probably going to want to finish top of the East. Like, I just think they're going to be pushing really hard this year. And as you said, I think he's going to take on a little bit more of a facilitation role with Smart gone. So, yeah, I just think he's at number 4 there. Possibly, maybe he finishes like at number 6 per game. But if he plays 75 games, right, he'll be like a top 3 guy, you'd think. So, yeah, I'm comfortable taking him at number 4.
Would you take him any higher than 4? Like, would you bump down like an Embiid or a Luka for Tatum?
I'd probably consider it. I think, Jokic is number 1. I think there's going to be no arguments there. I think I'm not sure if I have Luka at 2 or Embiid at 2. I'd probably – I want to see what happens in Philly first with Harden and see what their roster looks like. Luka looks really good in playing in Euro basket or whatever it's called that he's playing over there, getting ready for the World Cup. He looks fit. He looks healthy. So I really like Luka. So if I had to move him ahead of one player, it'd probably be Embiid. I'm still not sold on Embiid's health. So, yeah, I think I'd consider it, but I think he's very safe inside the top 5.
I thought it was interesting that Embiid finally admits now he's like, oh, I want to come into the season in the best shape of my life. It's like, bro, what was you doing before that?
Yeah.
Like, you need to make that declaration now. Like, come on, man. Like, I kind of feel you on I think Embiid's ADP is something that's going to fluctuate depending on whatever happens with Harden. Sounds like he still hasn't smoothed it over with Daryl Morey yet. Still wants to be traded, but like, the Clippers aren't offering us a substantial enough package for Morey to want to trade him. So I don't know. So assuming James Harden gets traded, would you devalue Embiid at that point, or would you feel more comfortable with him, as a second, third pick?
I think it would depend who came back. I think if the Sixers are sort of built like they're built now and they're pushing and this is it, we need to win, I'd probably lean into Embiid a little bit more. But if they lose Harden and they just get some picks back and they're not, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're probably not going to win, maybe then Embiid only plays 65 games. Or something, which isn't terrible, but it's not 75 like we're expecting from Tatum, Jokic, Luka maybe. You've got Booker at 15, probably a little bit higher than I've got him, I would say. Not by a lot, but I guess the question, like people say, well, Bradley Beal's there now. How is Booker going to get better? I think I know what you're going to say, but why have you got Booker up there at 15?
Yeah, we're not too far apart. I think you have him at 21 right now. And I actually had Booker as high as 13 in my very first rankings, but I moved him back slightly after the news that came out that Bradley Beal is probably going to be playing more point guard, but that doesn't really scare me off. Like, from what we saw in the playoffs of him averaging almost 7.5 assists I mean, just absolutely unconscious. And sure, that's going to regress. Like, he's not going to average 34 points per game. But just the lack of depth on the Suns team and his ability to now take over as the point guard. I think there's just way too much upside available for him. Like, he's going to become that next dude. He is among the top shooting guards in the league. Now that Chris Paul's out of the way, I think we'll start to see how dynamic this guy can be really with the ball in his hands, not only from a shot creation standpoint, but I think there's also some opportunity for him to get better defensively. In the playoffs, he averaged, what did he average? 1.7 steals in the playoffs. I think that could probably normalize to around a 1.2, 1.3. And with some efficient peripherals, you're looking at a top 20 player. I'm just banking on him taking that next leap, to become a 27, 28 point scorer, along with 6.5, 7 assists with the rebounds that are already going to be there at 4 or 5 per game. To me, that's going to be a top 15 player. So that's why I have him ranked there. Might be a little bit aggressive, but I think we also can the lack of trust in Durant's health and Beal's health, to me, signals that, if those guys get hurt, this guy's going to be, a top 12 easy first round value.
Yeah, sorry, that's my cat deciding to climb up his scratching pole. My whole family's just bailed and they're going to the coast for the day, leaving.
Oh, nice.
So that's why there's doors.
They left you here to podcast with me, man. Oh, that sucks.
They did. And my daughter, who's running late as always, banging up and down the stairs. Yeah, look, I agree on Booker. I think he's going to have a really good year, and a little bit like the Celtics. The Suns' window is now. They need to win now with Durant, because in 3-4 years he's not going to be the player he is now. So they need Booker to stand up, and I mean, I know Durant's there, but this is Booker's team. Like, he runs the team. He's the yardstick or the measuring stick. So I think you could certainly make a case for putting him here. I think once you get outside that second round, there's a bunch of guys you can sort of shuffle them around depending on what you think they're going to do and just personal preference. So, I've got him at 21, but I'm certainly not against him being this high. And as you said, if he can get his steals up to sort of 1.2, 1.3, assists up a little bit, 6.5, he's still going to score. He's efficient. He's good from the free throw line. He hits threes. Then I think it's not out of the realms of possibility that he could be a first round player. He could certainly finish 10th, 11th, something like that. Jordan Poole, you've got at 52. He's a guy that's getting a bit of traction for good reason, as a top 60, top 50 guy this season, a breakout candidate. I think he's the favourite to win most improved. I know we're very early, but he's right up there. Washington, he's going to basically have free reign there to do whatever he wants. What are you expecting from him this season?
Yeah, as a starter, man, I just think we saw so much growth and opportunity for him, and really seeing what he could do from a fantasy perspective over the course of his career. We're talking over, 115 game sample size, was pretty significant. This guy's averaged over 21 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, shoots 43%. I think that he probably is going to look more or less like a Fred VanVleet type. He's going to be chucking a lot, probably not going to hurt your field goal percentage, but I do think that there's going to be an opportunity now that Kyle Kuzma's returned for him to increase those assists to at least 5 per game. So if you're looking at a guy that could potentially score 24 to 25 points per game with 5 assists, that's going to be a top 50 player or right around that area. And as you said, he's got the keys to the offense right now. There's not a lot of talent there. Monty Morris is gone. I don't know what the Washington Wizards are going to do with DeLon Wright. Tyus Jones did come in, but there's rumors that he could be coming off the bench. Either way, even if he was starting, I would still have Jordan Poole this high, just because he's going to have the most volume in terms of scoring. And I think that there is going to be an opportunity for him to increase those assists. He's going to get you at least a steal per game. He's going to give you the threes. I just think that there's a lot of cross-categorial value in Jordan Poole this season. And I'm curious to see where he's going to go in terms of ADP. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's, you're probably going to have to I don't think you'll have to be overly aggressive to get Jordan Poole, but he could end up being one of the better guards in fantasy this year.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, for me, it comes down to his efficiency. That'll swing his value. So if he's shooting sort of 41% scoring, but shooting really low, it drops him down. But if he can get to 45% or something like that, then it bumps him up because he's going to get assists, he's going to get points, he's going to get threes. Some defense would be nice. We're not expecting a lot, but a steal a game, maybe he can nudge a steal a game. A guy you've got next who profiles somewhat similar, I guess, to Jordan Poole is Jalen Green at 73, which is probably a lot higher than I've got him. I haven't got my ranks in front of me, but he's probably the one that maybe we do differ a little bit in terms of our opinion. Houston have obviously loaded up their roster. They're arguably the deepest roster in the league now, I think, at least from a fantasy perspective. Why so high for Jalen Green?
So I was high on him last year. I think I had him 69th in per game value, and that was a disaster. And we're actually not that far off this year. You have him at 84. Okay. I have him at 73. So we're not terribly far off, but I do think we both agree that he's going to be better this year. How much better? That's the question. And, even though he didn't perform that well in terms of per game value because he lacks efficiency and really doesn't give you any kind of defensive stats and, pretty low rebounds and assist margin. But now that Ime Udoka's there, he's projected to be the starting shooting guard. And right now, when you have Fred VanVleet, a guy that is a leader, veteran, I think everything is kind of signaling that Houston's going to be much better. And when I'm drafting and doing rankings, I want to try to target players that are in good situations that have an opportunity to expand or, just have more freedom to operate within an offense. And we saw what Ime Udoka did for the Boston Celtics in just one season as their coach, playing with so much talent around him, and Alperen Şengün, a player that doesn't command a lot of offense, but he can actually dictate and put people in other positions to be effective, as Fred VanVleet. I think it's only going to work for Jalen Green's benefit. And, he could be their top scorer this year. I could see him averaging 23 points per game. And if he can increase his assists to about 4 and 4 rebounds, with shooting 45%, and maybe he gets you a steal per game. I think he gets a lot of heat for his lack of defense, but I think he'll improve under a defensive-minded guy like Ime Udoka, a guy that took the Boston Celtics from a middling, defensive team to one of the best over the second half of the season, that run that they went to go to the NBA Finals a couple of years ago. So I'm definitely a bit optimistic here. But I think there's going to be at some point where it's going to click for Jalen Green, and I think that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, I've got his numbers up here. Look, I think getting to 23 points, he was at 22 last year, so I think that's certainly possible. 4 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal, possible. It's slight increases across the board. It's going to be whether he can get that percentage back up. So he was almost 43% in his rookie season and dropped back to sort of 41.6, so 42% last year. But the third year is often where a lot of these shooters progress and make that next step. So yeah, if he can get that up to 45%, then that bumps him up probably 100 spots straight away. Inside the top 100. So look, he could certainly do it. And as you know, I mean, in any fantasy league, getting a player outside the top 50 that can average over 20 points a game, that's value in itself there.
Absolutely.
So on to my guys that I've got here. I mean, anyone that's been in a draft with me or listening knows I'm pretty high on Cade this year. It's exciting to see what he's been doing for Team USA at their training camp. Not exciting from the point of view of, hey, I don't want the hype to build too much because I like getting him sort of in the third round of drafts at the moment. But I have a feeling with the trajectory that he's on, with everything and how well he's playing and all the reviews, he's probably going to get inside that second round by the time we hit draft season. I'm not sure, but I've got him at 33. I just really like what he can do. I mean, are you on board with this? Where have you got him in relation to me?
Yeah, so I had him originally in my first iteration. I had him at 55. I've now moved him up to 42. And based off what I saw in USA, I'm probably going to be moving him into like closer like top 40, maybe. I don't know that I'll get to 33, but I think you're right. And unfortunately, it's people like you that are going to drive up the price when you rank him 33rd. Everyone's going to be like, wait, why is Cade this high? But I think it's really about the Detroit Pistons actually being more competitive this year. And obviously, the relationship between him and Jalen Duren has been very profitable, at least in the offseason. I think that relationship's only going to grow and mature. And then they also have, a Sword Thompson who looks like he's going to be at least in the runnings to potentially start. Bogdanovich is still there. They have a decent starting lineup. I don't know. Their bench is probably still a little bit suspect, but they're going to be more competitive this year. And, Cade Cunningham has a very unique skill set. His size, his ability to see the floor, he can do everything, and he could get that triple-double potential, so that low-end triple-double potential. So I see why you haven't ranked this high. He's coming off an injury, so maybe it's a little bit high just off of that, but if you're basing on talent and the situation, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to his efficiency, because I think the counting stats are going to be there. He could easily be sort of 23 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, maybe a steal. He doesn't hit a huge amount of threes, but he hits enough for it to be a positive. But if he can get up to 45%, 46%, then that puts him in the top 50 straight away. So we'll see. But yeah, I really like. I haven't liked a lot of what Detroit has done, but I think they're starting to now trend in the right direction, and they've got a good coach finally. So someone who's going to run some proper rotations. Another guy that I'm really high on this season is Markelle Fultz. I've got him at 67 in my player ranks, and he was actually one of the guys I wanted to mention in the Yahoo ranks. He is currently, where did I see him? 173. So
disrespect. That's not mine. That's not mine. I swear that's not mine. I have him at where do I have him? I think I have him at 80. I have him at 82. So I'm not you're higher on him than me, but I could see he's a player that I was actually expecting to make this is going to be his year. It's a contract year. Like this is where it's going to work, because his situation's also improved too. But tell me why you're so high on him.
Look, I think just with all obviously we know the start of his career he was derailed basically because of the whole shoulder thing and the shooting. And I think a lot of people just thought he was done. He was never going to amount to anything. And he's actually been able to reinvent himself. And last season, I thought he was really good. He was 90th, I think, from memory. So he was 90th last season, 14 points per game, 4 rebounds, almost 6 assists, 1.5 steals, 51% from the field. So it's really the scoring, I think, for him. If he can bump that scoring up to 16, 18, which he was able to do down the stretch last season, he was able to score a bit more. He's going to get you steals. He's a really good wing defender, on-ball defender. Doesn't hit a lot of threes, but that obviously it's an element of his game that I don't think will ever come on. I just don't think he's built to be a three-point shooter, but it does mean that he's very good and has to be very good at attacking the rim. Hence the efficiency for a point guard. If you're shooting close to 52%, that's elite. There's not many point guards that are that elite outside of Steph Curry. So I just think, as you said, contract year, I think the squad the Magic have got now, this is their future. They're ready to go, okay, we're pretty much there. Maybe we need one more piece, but I think they're going to push for the playoffs this season. They did draft Anthony Black, which annoyed me a little bit just because they're sort of competing at a similar position.
Yeah.
But I really like Fultz. I think Gary Harris is probably going to start at least to open the season. But I think they would want to see Suggs and Fultz as their backcourt. Do you agree there, disagree? What are you thinking for Fultz this season?
So I was trying to think of a player comp for Fultz. from a fantasy perspective, and I landed on Andre Miller,
Okay.
a guy that is going to get you assists. Like I think his assists could be, 6.5. He did average 5.8 last year, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
5.7. Yeah.
5.7. So, with Paolo and Franz Wagner, like they have talent around them to create and score. So I think he's going to be fine. The minutes cap, he only averaged like a shade under 30 minutes last year. If he can get that up to like 33, 34, that production is going to rise for sure. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony. There's just a lot of guards, right? And then you mentioned Anthony Black. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made some moves by midseason to offload maybe some of that veteran talent. Suggs was already rumored to be on the block already. So I don't know if they're going to keep Fultz after this year, but I think that this is his time to really shine. And I think you're right. I think the Orlando Magic are certainly going to make a push for the playoffs. They were close last year. Them and the Pacers, I think, are those two teams in the Eastern Conference that are going to make that next leap and probably overtake some of those, Raptors and trying to think of some low end teams that made the playoffs last year. We'll start with them, but
Yeah.
Either way, I feel good about Orlando's prospects going into the season, and Markelle Fultz especially because, as you said, the value that you're getting him late in the draft to be able to get someone that can shoot 50% from the field, give you almost 1.5 steals or about 1.5 steals. No threes, but the assists are huge. I think he's going to average over 6 assists. So with such a young team and him trying to prove himself in the contract year, I think this is going to be the best version of Markelle Fultz that we've seen yet. So, I think you're ranking him aggressively like Cade Cunningham, and I hope more people don't see that because there could be some value on Fultz come draft day.
Yeah, and I just while I was looking at his numbers there, and you mentioned player comp, I actually, in a few ways, I'm having a look at Fred VanVleet's numbers from a few years ago. So VanVleet was sort of a guy that didn't score. He's not a high volume scorer, not a 25-point scorer. And if we go back, for example, 3 seasons, he averaged 17.6 points, almost 4 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 1.9 steals. I'm not sure Fultz can get to 1.9, but maybe 1.6, 1.7. And he doesn't hit the threes that VanVleet hits, but VanVleet in that season shot 41% from the field. And Fultz could be, as we've seen, closer to 50, 51, 52. And in that season, VanVleet was the 23rd ranked player. So it's the makings are there in terms of the assists, the steals, not necessarily having to score 25 points a game because he does enough other stuff. So, yeah, we'll see. I hope I'm right, but the Magic, they do have some depth in that backcourt, so we'll see what they do. Cam Johnson at 68, another guy I'm really high on. This season, he was better than that last season, I think, from memory. He was 54th last season. I think people just sort of sleep on him a little bit. He's not sort of one of these guys with the name value. He doesn't do any one thing really good, but I think his trajectory is on the way up. He's a bit older, I think, than a lot of people think. He was an older rookie, I think. So I think just with the way the Nets are built now, they're building around him and Mikal Bridges. I think he looked really good down the stretch after he was traded to Brooklyn. I think he can be close to 20 points a game, 19 points a game. He's relatively efficient, sneaky on the defensive end. So I think he averaged 1.2 steals last season. Good from the free throw line, hits threes, decent rebounder. He's not great, but he could get 5 rebounds a game. So I just think when you add all the little things that he doesn't really hurt you anywhere. He's sort of a lock. If he's playing 30, 32 minutes a night, I think he's a lock to be inside the top 60. And I'm not sure where his ADP is at the moment, but I'm pretty high on him, and I'm probably going to bump him up in my ranks.
Well, join the party, man. I have him at 59, so we're not terribly far off again. And I think for much of the stuff that you said in regards to just the opportunity playing in Brooklyn, he proved that even with increased volume, his efficiency didn't decrease that much. He still shot 47% from the field as a member of the Brooklyn Nets. I think just being traded along with Mikal Bridges, those two are just going to be a dynamic tandem where I think we could see Cam Johnson push for, I don't know that he'll get to 20, but I think he could definitely get to 18, 19 points per game. And if you're combine that with his efficiency that he's shown, not only from three, but then also the sneaky steals that you mentioned, he averaged close to 1.5 steals with the Nets. He's going to make for a really good fantasy player. And he's one of those guys that I'm imagining won't get a ton of acclaim because he's not like a 25-point scorer, but the efficiency, kind of like Trey Murphy and Mikal Bridges, like that's what's going to bump him up in 9-cat leagues. It's really that efficiency. So I do like Cam Johnson a lot. I could definitely see him being a top 60 player, and that's why I have him ranked as such.
So last guy I've got, and I was sort of umming and ahhing on who I'd put as my fourth guy, and I'm not super pumped about this, but I've got Mike Conley, so I've got him at 104th. I just think he's obviously very old, and a little bit of an injury concern there, but I just think the Wolves need to prove some people wrong this season. I think last season they were roasted for the Rudy Gobert trade and how much they gave up and how bad they looked. But they were still competitive. They still sort of were there come the end of the season. I think a healthy Towns this season will make a big difference. But outside of Conley, they don't really have a point guard. So not a reliable point guard. So I think as long as they're competitive and they're pushing, which they're going to have to in the West, they're going to need to win games early and keep winning. Mike Conley, he's just solid. Like I think he was inside the top 100 last season. 12 points, 6.5 assists, a steal, 83% from the line. What do we got? 2 3-pointers. So he's certainly not on an upward trajectory, but I just think grabbing a point guard, if you miss out on a sort of an elite point guard early in drafts and you need some assists and steals towards the back end, we know he can be closer to 1.2 steals. The assists are going to be there. So I don't know. I just think he's a nice guy to target in sort of the 9th round, 10th round. And chances are he's going to fall beyond this because people are just going to go, Mike Conley, he's however old he is, he's going to get injured. But at that point, if you can get a guy like this, I wouldn't mind it at all.
Yeah, I have him at 118, so I'm not expecting a huge splash from Mike Conley in this season, but I think you're right in terms of Minnesota needing to make up for their terrible trade for Rudy Gobert. They were better when Mike Conley got inserted into that starting lineup. The whole thing with D'Lo was, there's only one ball and so many mouths to feed and egos. And I think once you get a veteran like Mike Conley into that system who can kind of facilitate the offense, get Anthony Edwards involved, get him going downhill, also get Karl Anthony Towns, who wasn't on the floor much because he was injured for much of the season, getting him into his spots, as well as, still giving Rudy Gobert his touches, even though he shouldn't ever really get that many touches, especially outside of the painted area. Like just be a rebounder and defend and protect the rim. But for where you're getting him, it's a pretty low risk situation, right? Like I'm not too concerned about his health. I feel like some veteran players just kind of get that IQ about certain plays that they need to make and not over stressing and impressing certain situations. He's been a top 100 player for the last 3 seasons. So where you have him ranked, I think is appropriate. I don't think we're going to get a huge leap out of him, but I think you can at least depend on a guy that can give you 5-6 assists, 12 points, a couple threes, maybe a steal, probably a steal per game on a team that's probably going to be a playoff contending team. So as long as he's getting minutes, I'm cool with getting Mike Conley as a late backup depth for the guard position. Or if you decide to focus on other areas, maybe he becomes your starting point guard. Probably wouldn't recommend that, but I could see it being an option just because at least he gives you 6 assists a game.
Yeah, much the same. I'm not expecting him to break out or anything like that, but if you can get, and we've seen this over the last few years, grabbing those guys who are on those teams that are going to be anywhere from sort of 6th through to 12th, they're the guys in week whatever 25 of the season, of the fantasy season, they're going to be on the court because these teams are going to be jockeying for position. He played 67 games last year, 72 games the year before, and based on league average, all that sort of thing, upwards of 65 games is about right. I think league average is sort of mid to high 60s, so that's fine. I like him as a late guy there. Now this is our ADP. Yep, you go.
I was gonna say real quick before we jump to the early ADP. I did notice one player that kind of piqued my interest in your rankings that you have pretty low. If you wouldn't mind me asking, why do you have Chris Paul at 94?
It's probably going to change, but I don't know. I'm just not sure how the Warriors are going to use him. I think I would have him in that range, similar to Conley. I mean, he's probably going to get more assists. He's probably going to be maybe 8 assists a game, probably 1.2 steals. So I think he's assists and steals, but I don't think he's going to score a lot, which he didn't last year. I don't even know where he finished last year.
Yeah, he was like 14 points per game. But I guess the reason I ask is because I don't remember, and I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how many people have talked about how great Chris Paul has been for his entire career as a fantasy player. Do you know the lowest he's ever finished in fantasy?
I don't, but I know he's very good because why was I looking at his numbers? He had he had a few top 1 seasons, like where he finished first, and I think I was looking at it because we were talking about. I think we were looking at Wembanyama, and then we were having a look at, because people are obviously talking about where are we going to rank Wembanyama, where's he going to finish as a rookie, and so I think I went back and had a look at who are the best performing rookies in sort of the last 20, 30 years, and Chris Paul, I think, was maybe 17. The top. Yeah, he was the top one. I think it was him, Karl Anthony Towns.
Mm-hmm.
So last year is the lowest.
Yeah, 33 was the lowest of his career, and he had an 11-year run of being a top 10 player. I mean, he's going to be up there. Like I don't know when we do the fantasy basketball Hall of Fame, but he's going to be up there, like first ballot, no problem. So I have him ranked, I think, at like 67 or something like that.
Okay.
So like I have to discount him for sure for coming off the bench or whatever his role is going to be, and his points have gone down each of the last 5 seasons ish. So and then 8 assists, that's probably a given, and as you said, 1 steal, but just the efficiency for him, I'm like, I can't put him like anywhere outside of 80 just because off of the history. Like he's just always a good fantasy player. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up. I thought it was kind of funny, but I feel like you'll probably move him down a little bit more.
Yeah, look, I think I'll probably, I mean, I haven't been going back through my ranks for a little bit, but I'm probably going to, I think if I go through there and have a look at who I've got in that range, I probably move him up into the 80s.
Okay.
At least. I'm just having a look at what his ADP is. At the moment, where is he? So his ADP at the moment, so his ADP is 89. Based on all the leagues we've done, I think we've done about 35 or 40 leagues, so we've got a relatively good sample size.
Sure.
But in terms of players that have gone up and down in the past month, his ADP has actually dropped 10 spots in the last month. So. That's interesting. I think it might start to go the other way. I think people are just uncertain of how they're going to use him in Golden State.
I think that's definitely it.
I think if we get sort of word that, okay, he's going to play 28 minutes off the bench, he's probably going to close games, then, I think his ADP will come up quite quickly. So this is just a few names that I've pulled out of our ADP data. Maybe too high, maybe not high enough. Fred VanVleet at 29 for me is way too low. I think, I mean, he's better than this. He was 18th last season, and I think you have to run with the thought process that he's going to be better in Houston. He's going to be the guy running the point. Do you think this is too low, or is this where you've got him?
This is too low. I was trying to pull up my rankings real quick. I have Van Vliet. I want to say I had him in the top 20. Let me see. Van Vliet, where you at, buddy? Oh yeah, I have him 17. So yeah, I think that's way too low. And for much of the reason that you just said, it's, I think this is the first time he's going to be in a situation where another player isn't going to be either taken away from his usage as a primary ball handler, and he's also going to have he's the elder statesman on this team now. So I feel like this is actually going to be his moment to prove yeah, not only am I worth the money, but we're also going to win. There's 20 and 10 potential here, in my opinion, with the amount of talent that they have. And he has to be a top 20 player. So this is, if that holds, that's going to be a valuable pick for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I think he'll slowly make his way up closer to at least the turn, like 23, 24, but maybe inside that top 20. Kawhi Leonard's at 38. I know why, and we know why.
Yeah.
Anyone who's followed him across the last 4 or 5 years knows why. Is this for you? Is this too low? Are you of the belief that maybe he can have a relatively healthy season and blow through this number, or is he just too injury prone for you to bother?
I'm going to avoid him. I think if you get him, congratulations. You're going to have a top, 15 player when he plays, but when he doesn't, I just don't know that I want to pay for that headache when you could get somebody else that can play 70 games. That's going to be much more reliable over the course of a season. But the talent, undeniable. I think 38 is probably where he needs to be going. Talent wise, he should be way higher. And I think I ranked him higher, but I'm probably going to move him back just because I don't know what to really expect out of Los Angeles right now between him and Paul George. They're just not dependable. And I think that you have to rank them as such. And I wouldn't, it's just so hard in a load management era to trust somebody like that. So yeah, I would just avoid him with all costs. Yeah,
I've got him at 17 in my ranks, but that's sort of more of a per game. Okay, I think he's going to be a top sort of 20, top 15 per game guy. But
yep, I got him at 20. Yep.
That's not to say that I would draft him there. I certainly wouldn't draft him in the second round.
No.
Maybe this is about right. Maybe 30, back end of the third round, early fourth round, because you're on the turn there. Feels about right. And if as you said, he could come out and play 65 games and be a first round player.
Right.
We saw how good he was down the stretch last year. He was a first round player for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Next one here is a guy that's been, he's one of the more talked about fantasy real life players for a number of reasons. Alperen Sengun at 49. I have him probably around that range. I think I've got him around 50 somewhere. I got him at 57. I think this feels okay. Are you sort of on the all aboard the Sengun train, or are you he's going too high for me?
So I drafted him in the first mock. I believe in the first mock that we did. I believe I got him in the 5th round. I felt good about that. I have him ranked at 61. So I feel like 49 is a little early, but it's pretty close. I'd say that that's probably pretty accurate. I could see someone that's reading Houston Rockets Twitter oh yeah, I'm all in on Sengun this year. I was in on him last year. I don't know. Maybe I just have a thing for Houston Rockets, but I think he's going to be really good this year, and I think that's an appropriate price.
Yeah, I think. He's looked good. A little bit like Luka playing over in Eurobasket. He's looked good. There was a vision of him warming up with a cape on, which doesn't have anything to do with fantasy, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's cool. But he flashed that sort of Jokic-esque upside. Being able to pass. He's a guy that he's not a great defender, but I think with a better team around him, with Dylan Brooks, as much as I don't like Dylan Brooks as a fantasy player, he is a good defender. Yeah. So with him there, with Van Fleet, who's also a very good defender, I think Sengun's liability on that end will be masked a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think last season he was close to a block and a steal per game. So despite not being a great defensive player, he'll get you some defensive numbers. So I'm still pretty high on him this season, and this feels about right, around 50 in that range. Next guy, Dan Gafford at 95. I know there's a few analysts who are very high on Gafford for this season. I think a couple of them have even said that he'll finish higher than, was it Şengün, or were they talking about someone else? I can't remember exactly. It was in one of the hot take articles.
That sounds like a backhand shoe.
Yeah, it might have been. I'd have to go back and have a look, but I know a few people are high on him. How high are you on him for this season?
I actually have him ranked at 95th, so I'm not like super high on him. I think the key to him being that valuable is him getting consistent minutes. He's not old. He's like, 25 years old? He's super young. Yeah. So, I think he's had a couple of destination changes. Now that Kristaps Porzingis is gone, he doesn't really have that much competition in the front court. I guess my question would be, how is Washington going to deploy him? Are they going to run, a smaller lineup with, Denny Avdija playing some 4 and 5, and then also you got Kuzma there. He's a rim protector. He's never going to get a lot of shots off. So I think he'd be good for 10 rebounds and maybe 2 blocks a game if he gets 30 minutes. But I just don't know what else I'm going to get from him other than the field goal percentage, the blocks, and the rebounds. So to me, he's back end depth from a center position. I'm not going to reach for him. I'm not expecting this, double, savant here. I think Daniel Gafford is pretty much who he is. And, 95th is still good. He'll be a top 100 player, but I just don't know that I definitely don't know that I can get to him being better than Şengün.
Yeah, I think it's minutes. As we saw, he was 140th last year in 20 minutes a game. So, right. I mean, if he gets to 30 minutes, which I guess he could, then maybe he's up at sort of, I'm just adding another 50% sort of to his numbers here, but you're looking at sort of 14 points a game, 9 rebounds, 1.8 blocks, 1.9 blocks. He's efficient. Doesn't kill you from the free throw line either. He's not terrible. He could probably get to 70% from the line. So doesn't hit any threes, doesn't really get any assists. But just those block numbers alone, if you can get anyone that's getting close to 2 blocks a game, they're going to be top 80, top 90.
Right.
We know that's the case. Next guy sort of fits this bill as well to some degree. Zach Collins. I think he's falling. He's way down in the X ranks for Yahoo at the moment. I can't remember what I said. He's at 190 or 200 or something, and he'll come up. But the whole Wembanyama thing is obviously the big focus in San Antonio, and so I think people are forgetting about how good Zach Collins was to close last season. I think he starts at center for the Spurs. Do you think he starts?
I do think he's going to start. I'm not terribly off from you. I have him at 130, 131, I think. It's just I'm wondering how Pop is going to deploy their lineup as well. You still got Jeremy Sohan there. Zohan.
Keldon Johnson's there.
Keldon Johnson's still there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably going to be some musical chairs in terms of their depth chart and who they're deploying as starters. They're not going to be in a win now mode, so I could definitely see some random missed games. But I think he's going to be a pretty solid player, and especially if he's starting, that's another guy like, I don't know if I would take him over Gafford. I don't know. Zach Collins gets sneaky assists, man. He's kind of like Jakob Poeltl, but like a little bit more dynamic. So, yeah, I think that I think the ADP is justified. And I think there's actually room for him to be better than that. So, like, he would be a guy that I wouldn't be afraid as like a backup center. I think he could actually be pretty valuable, especially for those assists.
Yeah, I think I'm just going through his game log here because he's sneaky in 3-pointers as well, which is a difference. That's a point of difference from Poeltl or Gafford or these guys that he can hit threes. And obviously down the stretch, the Spurs were running some pretty wacky rotations last season. They were resting guys. Even if you look at Collins' game log, he was in, out.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to know exactly who he was sharing the court with. And obviously he wasn't sharing the court with Wembanyama, so that's going to make a difference. But he had like a few games where he's got a 21-10 with 4 assists, 21-7 with 4 assists, 2 threes, 24-8 with 4 assists and 4 threes, So
huge for a center.
Yeah. So
really nice.
there is sneaky upside there. In, as you said, those categories you usually wouldn't find with a center, like 3-pointers and assists. So I don't know. I don't think he's got a path to minutes like Dan Gafford, but I think I'd consider him over Dan Gafford unless it's just blocks. If it's purely blocks that you need, go with Gafford. But that said, I mean, Collins had 3 blocks, 2 blocks, 2 blocks, 1 block, 3 block, 2 blocks. So he can block shots.
He can do it.
Yeah, so he's an interesting one for this season. It will be, we'll see where he lands come October. The next guy, a guy that I'm probably going to fall for again this season for some reason. But at this range, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Ben Simmons at 133. We see all the videos. We hear all the talk. He's healthy. He's Josh Lloyd covered the Nets on his show earlier in the week, and it does sound as though they want Simmons starting at point guard. So, which I would have thought they'd be starting Dinwiddie at point guard, but word is that Simmons is sort of that's who they're looking at as their starting point guard to open the season, assuming he's good to go. If he's starting, is he someone you're interested in at all?
No.
Okay.
I thought about it for a minute. I was like, well, I do see the appeal of Ben Simmons. Like he's essentially Draymond Green at this point, right? But like better when he's healthy.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some fantasy appeal there. Like I like the assists, I like the rebounds, I love the defensive stats. You're not going to get much from the free throw line. Field goal percentage is solid, but you're not getting anything from threes. If he falls to the depths of a draft, sure, I'll take a flyer on him. But at 133, I don't know, that ADP seems a little bit early for me, considering the risk that you're having to account for. And I similar to Kawhi, like I just don't want the headache. I drafted him last year in a competitive league, and I immediately regretted it as my team. I tried to build this like it was almost like a front, like a huge like twin tower front court type of beast center squad, right? I targeted all guys that were high field goal percentage, low 3-pointers, but like does a little bit of everything, and it just completely tanks. So yeah, I'm going the complete opposite direction of that, and I feel like Simmons is a guy that if you need some assists late, sure, he'll be solid and some steals, but outside of that, like I'm not really interested in him.
Yeah, look, I'm okay to take him with I mean, yeah, he hurts your free throws, obviously. He doesn't hit threes, but I'm okay to take him at the end. Just looking back at his numbers here from sort of when he was in Philly, when he was playing well, and he was up at sort of 16, 8, and 8 with 2 steals. Like it's phenomenal.
That's amazing. If you can get that and he winds up playing 60 plus games, that's a sleeper value of the year right there.
Yeah, and he did finish. Look, per game last season, he finished 137th, despite how bad he was. It's really the health. It's the back thing. It's the knees. It's everything. So
mentals.
Yeah, the mental stuff. I'm hoping that I mean, he's had a lot of pressure on him for years now to produce. He was the number 1 pick. He was sort of the guy in Philly, and then there was all the drama about him leaving. I'm hoping this season now, he's had this really bad year last year. He was terrible. He's sort of an afterthought now. So that may mean that a lot of that pressure is now gone. It's more, let's look at his upside and not what he's not doing. So I don't know. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but sort of need to see it to believe it. Last guy I've put here is Quentin Grimes, who's going at 162. I think he might be in for a really nice season. I think we saw some flashes last year. They have added Dante DiVincenzo, lost Obi Toppin. I think Grimes probably starts. I'm not 100% sure. Doc and I went through our Eastern Conference starting lineups earlier in the week, and I think I had Brunson, Grimes, had Josh Hart starting, but I've started to rethink that. I think they might bring him off the bench and start RJ Barrett. I'm not sold on that. But what are your thoughts on Grimes? Do you think he starts? Do you think he can be fantasy relevant this season?
Defensively, I think he makes sense for him to start at the 2. I would be concerned about his minutes. I love the talent, and I just think that the Knicks did a couple of corresponding moves that might impact him, signing Dante DiVincenzo, re-signing Josh Hart for a lucrative deal. Emmanuel Quickley is going to get minutes. He must get minutes. Back end depth, I have him. Honestly, he's not even in my ranks because I think that there was some kind of issue on the back end. So, but I think I'm going to probably have him better than 162, maybe 150. But I'm not expecting a huge leap, only because there's going to be a lot of competition for minutes on that wing. And frankly, he doesn't do much besides the threes, the steals, and some scoring. So I would have to see some more out of training camp, or maybe there's going to be some Tibbs hype about, how great he's been in the offseason and how much minutes he wants to play him. Tibbs does play his starters a lot of minutes, but it's hard for me to trust with so much usage going to other people in the pecking order. So I love Grimes as the talent, but yeah, I think there might just be a little bit too many mouths to feed right now.
Yeah, I think a little bit of uncertainty at the moment. And it comes down to minutes. I think that the talent's there. But look, for me, I think he's a really, really good last round guy. If he's sitting there last round, then I think you have to grab him just for the upside. I think he was 150, like top 150 player last season. So I think we sort of consider that his floor. I think he can only go up from there. I'm not sure how much, but look, if he's sitting there, grab him, and he could be a top 100 player if they do decide to sort of just not hand him the keys. That's not going to happen with Brunson and Randall there. But the defensive, he's arguably their best defender, probably him and Josh Hart. So that brings us to the end of my list of guys. Oh, look, we're too big there. Let's not go that big. That was fun. I mean, there's not much content at the moment, so I think it's just good to chat. You said fantasy football is sort of big at the moment over there, so it's good that you were able to come on and talk some fantasy basketball. Let people know what you're doing, obviously over at Yahoo, and then you do the show for Roto World as well. What's coming up in the next month, 2 months?
Yeah, definitely be on the lookout for some mock drafts. Now that the mock drafts are open in Yahoo, I'll be doing a bunch of them. King, definitely want you in some mock drafts with me, so we can try to drive up the ADPs on people like Cade Cunningham. And then also definitely going to be doing some more articles as we get closer to the season starts, analyzing each division, some of my sleepers, my breakout players, stuff like that. So continue to tap in with me at Dan Titus, and you can find my work at Yahoo. Also doing some podcasting with Roto World. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. The season's coming up. So a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about, and always excited to do this with you. Nice break on a Friday. Wish you were at the beach, but I
don't.
I wish I was. That'd be really nice. But appreciate you having me on.
I'm not a beach fan, so I'm happy to be sitting here in my house. No, so I appreciate you jumping on. That will do it for today's show. Remember, you can check out all of our content at fbibasketball.com. Still rolling out draft-only leagues and some dynasty leagues as well. You can follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Head over to YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. We're slowly building our numbers, so it's good. It's obviously a pretty dead time at the moment, but for those that are listening and tuning in, we do appreciate it. Until next time, catch up.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community, please check out our website at fbibasketball.com.